Yo, it's your boy Signature D, back again with another video. We're going over some mixing today and some production techniques with experimental hip hop. Let's go. Alright, let's talk about depth, particularly in this section with the vocals here. Okay, you hear how it sounds like this vocal right here? Like they sound behind. How did I get things to sound behind? They sound further back, but still clear enough. So this is how, look at this EQ right here. So what am I doing? Basically, I'm in mid-side mode on the EQ, which allows me to EQ the mids and the side information differently. So if we weren't in mid-side mode and we were just in stereo, this is how this would sound. Right? But we in mid-side mode, where I'm boosting a lot of the information here and here in the sides. So when you have less information in the mono, like in the mid, but in the sides, you have like almost like a lifting effect, right? It's lifted and further back because you have less direct signal. You have more reverberant information, okay? So we're boosting. There. And it tops. So creating this nice boost so there's more depth and more high information in the sides than in the middle. That's how I have those vocals. To me, sound like it feels like it's coming from above almost, right? This helps when you have a lot of layers if you want to create some depth, basically, right? Obviously with my panning, I have things panned. Don't be afraid to pan things, by the way. Make sure you utilize in the whole stereo field, right? So with these little interjections here, hard left, hard right. Same thing with these harmonies. On my vocal bus itself, I have some reverb, I have soothe going on. Not doing too much, just getting rid of some of the harshness. Right? And then in this section, I wanted a little more edge, which is why I automated this dry wet on this overdrive. Without it. With it just adds a little more bite. This is another way if you want things to stick out more in the mix, you could add a little bit of distortion for it to just come forward more. Not too much, but a little bit to taste, and it'll come forward in the mix more, right? And of course, I'm sending this entire vocal bus here to 2 reverbs, which is just fat filter. Very short reverb times here, 0.24 seconds. And I'm just filtering out some of the lows in that. The second reverb, once again, very short reverb times, 40 seconds. Just want to send in these things just a tiny bit, gives a little more space. It doesn't sound like you just recorded it into your mic and it was just in your bedroom. You know, it gives it more space. Secondly, you want to create depth, you need to have more textures. Okay, so throughout I always have this water texture going on. No EQ, no nothing, just straight water, you know. Then I have these other textures which are some strings and pads. Notice with these textures, I'm more concerned with the high information. With these textures, I'm more concerned with the high information, the high frequency information, not the low frequency, because you want to leave as much space in your mix for your kick, your bass to live in those frequencies, right? So that's why I have this channel EQ here, boosting a lot of the highs, taking out those lows. I'm not trying to make the string sound real, artificial. This is experimental hip hop I'm doing, so yeah. All right, and I have these side chain to the kick and the snare. So every time the kick hits, it ducks. Every time the snare hits, it ducks. All right. All right. Textures. Boom. That's how you create depth. Thirdly, whenever you're using reverb, you want to have contrast, right? So a lot of these things sound very wet, very reverby, right? How do you contrast that? You need to have something dry in your mix. If you just have reverb on everything, then it's essentially like having no reverb on anything, you know? There needs to be a contrast. So my drums are pretty dry. Right? Really dry drums. I'm sending a tad bit, a tiny bit, just to the Fab Filter reverbs with the short reverb times, just to create more like a room sound. Okay, but that's about it. I'm not doing any long reverbs with the drums. Now, you may wonder, do I have a lot of processing on my drums? Look, there's actually no processing on this drum bus, right? It's all about sample selection. With this hi-hat right here, what I have on it is little micro shift, and that just gives it a little more weight and spread, right? So micro shift, it's a stereo spreader basically. So if I were to put this all the way up, it sounds like there's two hi-hats going on at the same time, just delay. So I have this very slight in the mix, as opposed to with it off, on, right? So just having a tiny bit of spread just helps it like sit better and not be so thin sounding. Because this is my groove here. The kick, the snare, and the hi-hats. That's the groove of the song. So I want them short. I want a little weight to them, right? The kick and the snare, I'm clipping it. Okay, I'm using standard clip. If you want some of your elements to hit harder, don't abuse it, but you could definitely clip. Let's hear it with clipping off. On. See how you get that nice crunch? That's what we like. We like some crunch. Just shaving off a little bit on that low end on that kick. Without. Right. Just shaving a little bit off. And notice my drums are very simple. Not too much going on. I have these little percussions going on. I just call them plucks. In context. Same thing over here. Right. You could get away with having the percussion a little wetter, like have more reverb on your percussion if you want the kicks and the snares to be dry. That is something that you could also do to create contrast within the drums themselves. But I chose not to. Next, bass. In this section, let's hear it in context first. Great. So, what do I have going on in my basses? First, I have the main bass. Right? Nothing special. Right? I'm laying it with a sub layer. This sub layer here, only the ultra low sub frequencies, right? I'm cutting everything else. That's all I'm doing. I'm using operator, just a sine wave. Also, if you don't have headphones, you're not going to be able to, or a sub, you're not going to be able to hear this. Right? I have this second bass going on here. Well, third bass. Right? And this bass is functioning more melodically, more as a widening. So I have wider, this plugin wider on it, and I'm spreading it out, okay? Because I want that thick, I want like a really thick something to just like fill the spectrum when it happens. Without wider, with it, right? I'm also doing some automation and some distortion right here. Right, again, over here. Right, so adding some distortion throughout as the track moves also creates more movement. Different things you could do, right? These are just some ideas. Next, let's look at these guitar plucks. So, you notice I have nothing on this. I don't even have EQ on this. This is because Torgny, this is a collaboration between me and Torgny, producer from Sweden. He sent me this guitar stems. There's nothing wrong with it. So it fits in the mix fine. I don't need to do anything. So you also need to understand this. Not everything you need to add plugins to. Just because you can doesn't mean you need to. Always ask yourself, what's the purpose of me doing it? If it's just because, then you don't need to. If not, then if you don't need it, you don't need it. All right, simple as that. Next, pluck 2, an octave layer. Third one, harmony. Right, so together. Right, and I have one pan hard right, one more to the left to just get more space. You have this guitar in the middle section. That's more for texture. Right, cool. Chords in this middle section. Oops. Okay, so bunch of different layers. Have this delay layer. Once again, nothing on it. I have these. Simple sine wave. Nothing else. Oh, by the way, the reason why it sounds like is because I have this tape on. Without it. With it. Right. This tape was a free plugin by Arturia. 2 Christmases ago, or last Christmas. One of them. Yeah. It's adding some nice character. Another one. Piano. Then I have this ARP coming in. Okay. Now, look at how I'm using this, right? I have these different layers going on. And in some of these spaces, I have these arpeggios. And I am automating the shape of it. So if you notice again, right? So I'm adding more harmonics basically by going from this shape to this shape. You could do this instead of automating volume, right? So I automate the harmonics. So it having more higher harmonics is gonna make it sound louder because it's brighter and we are more sensitive to higher frequencies. So yeah, another trick you could do instead of automating volume. Same thing on this side. Right. Also, in the second section of this, I add this extra pluck. Simple. Simple. Right. In the main, like in the, I guess you'd call it the verse, I have this layer, which I have tape on as well. So this is without it. Right? Gives it a nice little character, okay? Last thing we could look at is the vocals at the start. All right. Let's have some auto-tune here. A little bit of compression. Some EQ, not too aggressive at all. And then some delay. Without the delay. All right. And I'm just using delay to just like smoothen and spread out the vocal a little more. I didn't want it too direct. I could have it direct, but I didn't want it. So if I didn't want it, I didn't want it. It was just a creative choice. Layers. Another layer. Another layer. Another layer. Right? This is a little effect that I don't know if I've seen anyone done. I'm sure people do it. But when I when to create a contrast between the intro and the first section, I like actually automating. I put a cabinet on the master and I like to automate it. So like a guitar cabinet plugin, right? And I'm automating the dry wet hair. So I'll put this up to the extreme so you can hear. So I make it mono. So it starts stereo. You hear that effect? Like you hear how much more impact the drop would have when you make everything mono and then expand into stereo. This is such an old trick, actually. But I'm just using cabinet to do it because it gives some nice characteristics as well. Besides just turning it into mono, it sounds like a little more muffled, you know? Right. But I'm not doing too much. I'm just doing a little bit. It's all these little things. Then I have some multiband dynamics, some multiband compression, I mean, but I'm using it more as volume. Like as you can see, like I'm not doing too much compression, but I'm just adding more volume. And then I have the Oxford inflator. Right. I'm clipping as well, clipping the master on the inflator, and then limiting. And that's about it. So I hope you learned something. I hope this was useful to you. And yeah, I will see you around. I don't know when because school, but I'll see you around.